Welcome to Humanities Montana Summer 2024 Grants Informational Webinar. Today, we are going to dive into our grant making, specifically our community project grants and our film and video grants in preparation for the August 1st deadline. Humanities Montana is Montana's state humanities council. Established in 1972, we are one of 56 councils across the nation created through the state-federal partnership with the National Endowment for the Humanities. And we're designed to infuse the humanities directly and effectively into public life. Essentially, state humanities councils were formed to create a bridge between humanities in an academic sense and communities through grassroots initiatives. Our mission is to serve Montana's multicultural communities through stories and conversation. We offer experiences that nurture imagination and ideas by speaking to Montanans' diverse history, literature, and philosophy. And for over 50 years, our work has strengthened communities through grants and special programs that reach every corner of our state. We produce, fund, create, and support humanities-based projects and programs through eye-opening cultural experiences and meaningful conversations. Our goal is to connect people and inspire ideas and deepen mutual understanding. We do this by applying things like critical thinking, informed reasoning, logic, historical learning and analysis, and creativity to modern, current, pressing topics and issues and institutions of our world today. So at Humanities Montana, our role is to translate some of the more traditional applications of the humanities into opportunities for the general public to learn and engage with new topics and conversations about the human experience, and even more specifically in Montana. So for us, humanities is the examination of what it means to be human through interpretation and discussion of all forms of thought, interest, and expression. We also see humanities and humanities programming as a mode of inquiry and conversation that engages, supports, and challenges the ideals, beliefs, and tensions and misunderstandings and prejudices of the communities in which we live. We believe that the important thought can happen outside of the academy. It can happen in neighborhood institutions, churches, schools, and at kitchen tables across Montana. And we are especially interested in instances of the public humanities that promote civic engagement by raising critical issues facing everyday people and conducted with the hope of increasing participants' thirst for staying engaged. And we're not defined by rigid disciplinary boundaries. Instead, it's the humanistic lens, which emphasizes curiosity, questioning, and dialogue that matters for us. We are a private 501c3 nonprofit based in Missoula. Our offices are located at the University of Montana. We're not affiliated with the university. We just live on campus. And our team is small but mighty. Our executive director, Jill Baker, started with the organization about a year ago, and she is from Great Falls. And I'm the grants and evaluation director. I should introduce myself. I'm Megan Hill-Sundy, and I am the primary contact for all things grants. I'm the person that you'll get on the other end of a phone call, a Zoom call, or the office that you'd swing by to discuss your project idea. John Knight is our programs director. He leads and oversees all of our programs. So our programs that provide direct humanities programming to communities in Montana. And Jennifer Bevel, or Jenny Bevel, is our new program manager. And she oversees our democracy project and our Montana Center for the Book activities. And last but not least, our most recent hire is Liz Harrison. She is our new Development and Communications Director. She lives in Helena, and we are excited to see what Liz can help us do here at Humanities Montana. With the small team that we have, our impact is impressive. In 2023, over 700,000 audience members participated in live and non-live Humanities Montana led or supported programming, meaning that individuals came to a Humanities Montana program in person, they participated in something online, or they attended a project led by one of our grantees. So it's not a unique head count, but it is the number of the participation total in all of our programs and grants in the year 2023. Through grants and programs, almost all Montana counties have been involved in advancing the humanities. Another fun fact is over 5,000 Montana students experienced a Speakers in the School program in 2023. And also in 2023, Humanities Montana awarded over $68,000 in support of 55 humanities projects in 31 unique Montana communities. Humanities Montana has two primary functions. We offer programming through our Montana Conversations, Speakers in the Schools, the Democracy Project, and our Montana Center for the Book programs. And these are instances where we have a speakers bureau and organizations can book a speaker presentation at their location, in their community, or at their school. So if you're not familiar with our programs and our speakers bureau that participate both in Montana Conversations and Speakers in the Schools, you can find a full list of all of our presenters on our website, and you can learn more about how to bring one of our programs to your community if you've never had one there before. We also offer the Democracy Project, which is the teen-led civic engagement program facilitated through school and community libraries. Teens begin the year by identifying community needs and then develop a project or a program to address those needs and bring their dream to fruition by the end of the project year. And the Montana Center for the Book offers our Big Sky Reads program, Montana Reads, Montana Writes workshops, the Poet Laureate program, and Great Reads selections for the book festival with the Library of Congress. The second thing that we do is provide grants. And grants are our way of infusing ongoing humanities projects across the state with funding. And we have a few different grant categories. The first is Big Sky Reads. Big Sky Reads is a program for public book clubs, and we emphasize applications. We hope applications will come in from rural libraries. And these are $500 stipends to support book club activities. We also offer mini grants up to $2,000. These grants are for smaller projects, or if you need rapid funding to support a presenter or something that's happening with your program and you just need a little extra cash, that's what these are for. And applications for these are due 4 to 6 weeks before the project activities begin, and they are subject to funding availability. Our community project grants are for requests between $2,000 and $10,000. Applications are due April 1st, August 1st, and December 1st. Community projects are for more developed proposals and projects with a clear beginning, middle, and end. More about community project grants and film and video grants in a moment. Our next category is film and video grants, and we award up to $10,000 in one of 3 stages. Applications are due on August 1st. We also offer research fellowships. The amounts are still being revised for 2025, but the next round of research fellowship applications will be due on December 1st, 2024. Application information and the website will be updated in September. And the next webinar, the fall 2024 webinar, will focus on research fellowships. Historically, Humanities Montana's annual subaward budget is somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000. This year, our grant making budget is $150,000. We have 3 granting cycles or deadlines. That's the April 1st, August 1st, and December 1st deadlines, and 1 ongoing application opportunity with our mini grants. Big Sky Read stipends are also accepted on a rolling basis as long as funding is available. All applications are part of a competitive evaluation and will be considered on the quality of the application submitted, its relevance to the humanities, and the potential outreach and value to all Montana citizens. We encourage proposals that offer programming to or are led by communities with historically limited access or representation in the humanities. Communities include rural, Native American, and youth. Lastly, all of our grants are reviewed by staff and board members before final award decisions are made. This past year, our funding cycle starts November 1st and ends October 31st annually. At the end of April, we were at the midpoint for fiscal year 2024 and have awarded over $58,000 in grants to date. This total does not include the recent applications from the April 1st deadline. Those awards will be determined closer to the end of June, and announcements will be made in July. But here's a list of recent awardees through our mini grants and our community project grants so far this year. You can also learn more about grants awarded and previously funded projects by going to our website. Under grants awarded page, there's an interactive map so you can see where funds have been distributed, as well as PDF records of grants awarded dating back to 2020. So if you want to know whether or not your project idea or your organization has been funded before, or if your project is in line with something else that we funded, that's where I recommend going to learn more about what we fund. So all Humanities Montana funded projects must focus on clearly defined humanities themes. So we spoke a minute ago about how we define humanities, and our definition of humanities is available in the guidelines as well for easy reference. Projects also need to build on sound humanities scholarship. Again, that's our reliance on providing well-vetted information to the public. And we want to deepen public understanding of significant Humanities Montana questions. Projects that approach a subject analytically, presenting a variety of perspectives, and involve humanities scholars are what we look for. And humanities scholarship can include academic, professional, or a subject expert, or someone with lived experience or lived expertise in a particular topic. It's not a rigid, your humanities scholar needs to have a terminal degree in an advanced humanities discipline. We're looking for someone who has expertise and is recognized as having that expertise by others. We also support projects that employ appealing and accessible formats that will actively engage the general public in learning. So if you're doing a small presentation with an intimate group of people, is there a way for you to share that information with a larger audience? We look for that type of innovation in projects. And we also look for projects that demonstrate support and involvement of communities and cultures represented in project content and activities. So if you are presenting information about Native American culture, we ask that you have representation of that culture in either the program design, planning, or implementation. So Humanities Montana encourages projects that promote a deeper understanding of Montana's history and culture, as well as those that examine themes and subjects in the humanities that are relevant and important to Montana communities. I'm often asked, oh, my organization's out of state, but I'm doing a program in Montana that fits the criteria. Am I eligible to apply? And the answer is yes. If you're a Montana organization and you're doing a program outside of Montana, that's something we'd have to talk about because every state has a humanities council. Although we all offer different programs and grants, we want to make sure that funds that are allocated to each state are spent for programming in that state. Supported content of themes, humanities themes, include some of these things that you would normally think of as humanities themes. So literature, philosophy, history, language, civic engagement, and so on. We also appreciate agricultural humanities or environmental conservation, humanities discussions, anything to do with the natural and social sciences, as long as you can make a strong argument as to why your project is a humanities project and not a science project, we're open. We're open to learning more. Supported project formats include storytelling, historical analysis, public writing workshops, literacy programs. This list is not exhaustive, but these are just a few formats that we've seen from previous grantees. So let's dive into our upcoming funding opportunities. So the next round of community project grants, grant applications are due on August 1st. That is for any funds awarded for projects during that cycle can be used for project activities starting no earlier than October 1st. And the grant term is typically 30 days after completing all of your project activities and up to 12 months after your project start date. We make award notifications for the community project grants applications submitted on August 1st by October 15th. So backing up, community project grants they support these well-developed projects that have a clear beginning, middle, and end. They support programming that strengthens community and culture by promoting civic engagement, sparking thoughtful community dialogue, and reflecting on the human experience across the Big Sky State. These grants are designed to support a vast array of bold and innovative projects that are meaningful to local communities and inspire timely community conversations. A couple things to note before you consider applying for community project grants. You must either schedule a 30-minute grant consultation with me or submit the longer letter of inquiry or LOI form in our online grant application system. If you consult with me, we can work through eligibility. We can talk about whether or not your themes align with our mission and strategic priorities. We can talk about eligible expenses. It's your chance to really pitch the project idea to me and then we can work through some of those more challenging aspects of the application before you even start. Once you've consulted with me, I will ask that you submit the shortened LOI form online. It will just allow me the capacity to open the application online for you so you can start your full proposal. Community project grants also require a one-to-one cost share match. We'll talk more about cost share in a second. The other grant category that we are considering applications for on August 1st are film and video grants. Film and video grants are offered at 3 stages up to $10,000. Film and video grants offer multi-year support or one-time only funding for major projects in film and video that promote a deeper understanding of Montana history and culture, as well as those that examine themes and subjects in the humanities relevant and important to Montana communities. Film and video grants support collaboration between media producers and scholars to develop content grounded in humanities scholarship and prepare documentary films or programs made for television that engage public audiences with humanities ideas in creative and appealing ways. All interested, so the application deadline, the project start date, and the grant term and the award notifications for film and video are actually the same as those for the community project grants submitted for the August 1st deadline. Couple additional things to note for film and video. So before applying, you must schedule a 30-minute consultation with me and submit the shortened LOI form. So you have to meet with me first before you can submit the LOI. The reason we are a little bit more strict with film and video consultations is that film and video grants have some nuances. We are not allowed to award directly to independent filmmakers or fiscal sponsors. If you find yourself in a scenario where you're a filmmaker with a fiscal sponsor or a filmmaker looking for a fiscal sponsor, this consult is critical. This is your opportunity to talk with me about the next slide, which is called substantive involvement. And we can discuss eligibility and navigate that before you start working on your application. We do not award film and video grants to individuals, production companies, foreign entities, or any organization instituted for for-profit purposes. And we do require a one-to-one cost match for film and video grants as well. You can schedule consultations with me through July 19th, 2024, using the calendar link on the film and video webpage. And again, applications are due on August 1st. Announcements will be made in October, and project activities for which you plan to use our funds may begin on or after October 1st and must be completed within 12 months. Film and video grants are offered in 3 stages. So you may elect to apply for each stage sequentially, or you may apply for funds to support the most appropriate stage for your project. At the completion of each stage, the applicant must submit evidence of progressive and satisfactory development in order to be considered for funding at the next stage. No one project can receive more than $28,000 in total film and video grants, and all grants, again, are subject to the availability of funds. Stage 1, you may request up to $8,000 for research and script development. This enables media producers to collaborate with scholars to develop humanities content and other program elements. And awards must result in a script or detailed treatment, which is required to progress to stage 2 funding. And applicants must submit an example of previous work, which may look like a sizzle reel, a lookbook, a mood board, a previous film or video project that you'd completed, something to give us an idea of your style, of your passion, of your skill, and your ability to complete the project. Stage 2 is for requests up to $10,000 for production. This includes principal photography, source material acquisition, and rights clearance. The result is a rough cut of the film or video or an equivalent, which is required to progress to stage 3 funding. If you're applying for stage 2, you must submit a completed script or a detailed narrative treatment with your application. And for stage 3, you may request up to $10,000 for post-production activities, which includes final editing, completion of your project, and public distribution. You must submit a rough cut of your film or video project with your stage 3 application. And repeat proposals in a single stage are allowed. However, applicants should be aware that the total funds awarded, again, to any one project cannot exceed $28,000. Also, non-sequential proposals are allowed. You are not required to obtain a stage 1 award before applying for a stage 2 or stage 3 award. However, you still will be required to submit the appropriate work sample with each stage. Detailed information about each stage, what you need to have prepared, the required work samples, and the required outcome are all included in the guidelines in much greater detail. So where do you find those guidelines? I want to say that our grant resources on our website are excellent. We have, for every grant category, there's a request for proposal, which is sometimes known as an RFP flyer. And that's really going to give you a snapshot of like what the grant is, the application deadline, the project start dates, your additional resources. It's a great thing if you're applying, pin it up on your wall, put it on your desk, somewhere where you can see it so you can remember dates and times and you can remember that this grant is out there. We also have grant guidelines, which are going to be the most comprehensive summary of who we are as an organization, our grant making, the specific funding category information for the specific type of grant that you're applying for. It's going to go over the application components as well as what to do. It'll go over budget, allowable and unallowable expenses. It will also walk you through the review process, the selection process, and award management should you receive an award. Everything you will ever need to know about managing your grant from application to final reporting will be included in those guidelines. And there's a table of contents, so I highly recommend using that to navigate through the document when you need to just find something quickly. We also have an online eligibility survey. Just takes a few seconds, but it will help you determine whether or not you're eligible. We also have these recorded informational webinars for your reference and an FAQ section, as well as PDF copies of the letter of interest and application questions for each grant type. This is where those grant application questions they'll be the most updated version, unless you're actually working in the application in our grant management system. We will also provide final reporting question lists. If awarded, you'll be sent a copy of the final report question list so that you can plan accordingly at the onset of your program, but also you'll be able to quickly reference them on the website. Each web page will also include a link to schedule your consultation with me. You have direct access to my calendar, if you cannot find a time that works with your schedule before July 19th, please email or call and we can try to find a different date or time that works. The links to the online application and links to the portal for final reporting are all available on our website. So if you haven't gone to the website and really dug in, I highly recommend you do so today. Eligibility. So to be eligible to apply, the applicant organization must be established in the United States or its jurisdictions as one of the following: private nonprofit organization, accredited institution of higher education, state, local, and federally recognized Indian tribal governments and agencies, include schools, libraries, and museums, groups of persons that form an association to carry out a project for approved nonprofit purposes. And this is really, I've only had a few applicants fall into this category. So if you do think you are this sort of ad hoc group, this would be something we'd want to address very closely in our consultation. And individuals only in the event of research fellowships. So some other considerations for eligibility. One is, as I mentioned, these non-public membership organizations or groups, they may be eligible, but they do have to be constituted for nonprofit purposes. And there are some state designations and other forms of documentation that can help us get to a place where you may be eligible if you fall into this category. Individuals, again, with the exception of research fellowships and other organizations, including foreign and for-profit entities, are ineligible to apply for funding from Humanities Montana. Also of note, applicant organizations must not function solely as fiscal agents or fiscal sponsors, but must make substantive contributions to the success of the project. We're going to talk a little bit more about substantive involvement on the next slide. Also, you will be required to provide a unique entity ID and a federal tax ID number with your application. So the unique entity ID is a 12 character alphanumeric character identifier that's issued to you through sam.gov. If you need more information about that, there's some on the website. It'll be in the guidelines, and you can always reach out and we can discuss how to get through that. And then finally, with these other eligibility considerations, repeat proposals are allowed. However, proposals for annual programs or repeat projects of essentially the same format should request less funding than for an initial project. And we expect to see some innovation in the project. So the reason for that is we have $150,000 annually, and we have to spread it as far as we can. And if we were to refund projects annually, a lot of that budget would be consumed by existing projects and leave less space for new innovative work in humanities. We can talk more about that if it applies to you. So this webinar, we really dive into eligibility because eligibility is a challenge for filmmakers, but it is not an obstacle. We can actually help you get from A to B. I'm an independent filmmaker with a film project and I want to apply for Humanities Montana funding, but I don't have an applicant organization I just submitted a proposal and I was funded. We can help get you there. And part of that is through identifying eligible applicant organizations that will provide substantive contributions to your project. I do have a list of these organizations that have been vetted by the National Endowment for the Humanities. And in our August film and video application cycle last year, several filmmakers were actually able to secure these applicant organizations before the deadline. So this full list is included in the guidelines, and your applicant organization, if you're a filmmaker, what that means is that this is the organization that we will be awarding funds to. You may write the application and carry out the work, but the applicant organization is an eligible entity that we can actually send an award to. But it's not, they can't just cut checks to you. They actually have to do at least one or two of these substantive contributions included on this bulleted list. The idea is that there needs to be some project oversight or involvement or some consultation happening between the filmmaker and the applicant organization. If you have more questions about this, please feel free to reach out. And again, we will discuss this during your consultation. So additional requirements for community project and film and video applications. Again, community projects and film and video applications require a one-to-one cost match. Cost match can come from other funding sources or through in-kind donations of goods and services. Other funding sources, you may have applied for another grant to support your film project, but it hasn't been secured yet. In your application, you can list that as a potential funder. However, in your final, if you're awarded in your final report, you will actually have to have evidence that you had cost share, a one-to-one cost match for your award amount. And we also require at least one humanities scholar or subject matter to participate and contribute meaningfully in your project. And a letter of commitment from that individual will need to be uploaded with your application. Okay. So now that we've kind of gotten through some of the expenses and eligibility, we're going to talk a little bit more of sort of these overarching eligibility considerations. So arts versus humanities. The question as to whether or not you are eligible, your project is eligible, is dependent on this question. Are you creating art or interpreting art? So humanities and arts are not the same. That's why Montana is served by both an arts council and a humanities council. Arts programs that are eligible for Montana Arts Council funding focus on the creation of art, and that could be through various mediums or performative. Humanities programs focus on the interpretive aspects of the arts, like discussions about their historical or philosophical context, critical analyses of their methodology, lectures or films that look at the characteristics of different art movements or periods. Occasionally, we will award modest amounts for performances if these performances are paired with lectures, discussions, or interpretations of the art presented. But we cannot include payment to artists for the creation of art in any of our project budget. So additionally, an application will not typically qualify as a humanities project if its primary objective is to support the production of new art in any medium, unless the artwork is significantly grounded in the aims of the humanities. We know that artistic creativity is essential to human activity, but applicants must demonstrate that they are engaging at a deep level with the study of that activity from a broader cultural, historical, philosophical, and theoretical perspective. Additionally, if you have a storytelling project, and this is moving on from the arts and into other disciplines, if you have a storytelling project, it has to have humanities content it doesn't just qualify as a humanities project by being a storytelling medium. For example, if you have a podcast or a radio program, it has to be a humanities focused program. It can't just be because you're a podcast or a radio program telling stories. Okay. This part's hard, but there are extensive lists in the guidelines providing an overview of things we cannot fund and ways our funding may be restricted in certain areas. So these are just a few, but we cannot fund projects that provide a one-sided, uncritical treatment of an issue or focus on personal instead of public concerns. We can't fund projects that promote a particular political, religious, or ideological point of view or serve as a call to action. We cannot fund projects for construction, restoration, or operating expenses of existing organizations. This includes building materials and construction of exhibits. We also cannot fund the purchase of equipment, property, or any other capital purchases. This also includes museum or library acquisitions, such as collections, exhibit materials, except in really unusual circumstances, which I can get into in a different webinar. Funding restrictions for some of the projects that are eligible include, you can only use our funds for project activities completed within the grant's predetermined period of performance. So you cannot apply our funds to project activities completed before or after your grant term dates. We also cannot fund general operations that are unrelated to the project. We do have a small allowance for some indirect costs, but for the most part, general operations are off the table. We cannot provide funds for the preservation or cataloging of materials and collections. You cannot include a request for a CEO's salary that exceeds 10% of the total award amount request or final grant. And indirect project expenses should not exceed 10%. So if you include an executive director salary at 10%, that's it for indirect expenses. If you don't include an executive director salary, but you want to include other indirect expenses, you can also request up to 10%. The only exception to this rule is if your organization has a federally negotiated indirect cost rate, also known as a NICRA. There's lots of information in the guidelines about the terms and conditions for organizations that have this negotiated rate. And I'm also happy to talk to you about it. I've only seen it applied to colleges and universities at this point, but if this applies to you, give me a call. Okay, so allowable expenses, direct costs that you can include in your project proposal include expenses that are directly accountable to your proposed project activities and the fulfillment of your project outcomes. So examples of allowable direct costs would be project staff salaries. You can include staff salary line items for staff that are solely focused on this project. But again, note that 10% limit or cap on executive director salary. And this also includes even if the executive director is the only employee, you are by nature administrative, which gets into general operations. And so we still have to put a cap on that. You can include project contractor, consultant, scholar expenses. So this could be honoraria for panel participation, public presentations, research time, any expert services that will help improve the quality of the humanities content for your project. We also allow project-related travel for both staff and for consultants, contractors, and scholars. And the other part is project activities. So the project activities that directly support your project design, development, and implementation and evaluation efforts. So for film and video, this includes film time, facility rental, equipment rental, rights and licensing fees. And I also forgot to mention, for film and video, your project contractors include most of your film crew. So any experts that or contracted individual you're bringing in to carry out key project activities may be included in your funding request. That's a mouthful. Okay. We also allow some indirect costs. So I mentioned the 10%, that's the number to kind of remember unless you have a NICRA agreement. But indirect costs are those that your institution incurs for a common or joint objective and that you cannot readily identify with a specific project or activity. These are the basic things that need to be invested in staff or facilities or administration of your project, but they're also being spread across the organization for other purposes as well. It's essentially general operating, but it's the things that keep the lights on. But you can only include up to 10% unless you have this federally negotiated rate. It gets complicated, but that is why I am here, and I can help you navigate these direct, indirect, allowable, unallowable expenses. Okay. Proposals and the application process. So key project components. All proposals submitted to Humanities Montana are evaluated on project alignment and the following criteria. On your screen, you'll see that we look for mission alignment, which includes, does the project have comprehensive humanities content and scholarship? Are they engaging the public? And is there a level of innovation, a notable level of innovation? Something that's not being talked about, hasn't been done before, hasn't been done in a long time, things like that. Significance includes providing evidence of need. So we do ask for a need statement. We ask you to talk to us or discuss the value or the benefit to an audience or the community. If you're representing a specific audience in your film or community project, you need to have audience representation as part of your program design or content development. And we also look for evidence of collaboration with other organizations. And you can provide evidence of collaboration through letters of support from community partners or from past participants. But collaboration is always, it always makes a proposal stand out. We also assess for quality, which includes an assessment of your project description, your project work plan, your timeline, and then making sure that you have clear goals, outcomes, outputs, and activities outlined in these sections, and that your outreach, marketing, and your evaluation plans are well developed. For evaluation plans, it's not enough to just say, we're going to do a survey at the end. If that's all you can do, we understand, but I want to know what you're going to do with the information once you've collected it. What are you going to do with the information? What are you going to do with what you learn? And the fourth category is feasibility. We look at your project management, your applicant organization's history, reputation. We also closely examine your budget and your cost share, and then we look if this is an ongoing project or if we're infusing a small part of a larger project. We do look at sustainability in regard to feasibility. Is this something that will be successful, or will this continue to take place year after year? Although the applications for mini grants, community project grants, film and video grants, and soon research fellowship grants are all slightly different, they all have the same 5 basic components. They're just structured a little bit differently in terms of how the questions asked or the instructions that accompany each section. So the first one will be your project summary, where you'll be asked to provide a very brief description of your proposed project's primary goals and activities, and the specific stage in the event of in the case of film and video, the specific stage of funding for which you're applying and the amount of funds that you are requesting. We will also ask you to discuss your project management, which is a description of the applicant organization, a list of your project personnel, and contributing humanities scholars and their relevant qualifications. The biggest chunk is the project details, where you're going to provide a description of how your project aligns with our mission, addresses a need, reaches a specific audience, preferably a Montana audience. And this section also includes your detailed work plan, where you'll provide the timeline, the key activities, the outcomes, so on and so forth. You'll also be asked to provide a project budget and a project narrative. Your project budget, in the community project grants, you will be asked to submit your budget in a table that's integrated into the application, the online application form. For film and video, you will be required to use our budget template form, update it with your numbers, and then re-upload it to your application before submission. You'll also want to check the final section, which is your supplemental information and documentation. And this includes things like your organization's Form W-9, your UEI, your EIN, which is your federal tax identification number. You'll also be asked to submit letters of support and a copy of your CEO certification letter. There's also a template for that that is available within the application itself. Okay. Hope you're still with me. I highly recommend creating an application checklist. This is an application checklist that I kind of whipped together. It's not comprehensive. I hope to have a more formal application checklist posted on the website, but that probably won't happen until 2025. But for now, you can kind of see some of these checklist items, but read through the guidelines, the RFPs, go through the website, and just start building your application checklist. A shortcut is to look at your application questions and make sure that you're going to be able to answer all of them. And the application questions, again, are available for view on the website. Okay. So how to apply? We've got through all this jargon, and now I'm going to tell you the last few pieces and how to submit an application to us. So the first thing you want to do is read the grant guidelines. And go to the website and check out all of those resources that I shared with you earlier. But read those guidelines and research the grant opportunity prior to doing anything else. It's going to answer a lot of questions. It will save you some time. And even if your project isn't a good fit right now, reading through all of this might give you an idea of how something you are hoping to do in the future might align with our grant. So it won't be a waste of your time. The second step is to consult with me. So for film and video grants, you will need to schedule a consultation with me before July 19th. So look at my calendar, get on my schedule, call, email, whatever it is you need to do to set up a time for us to discuss your project. You can preview the letter of inquiry questions for community project grants, and the film and video web page will be updated hopefully earlier next week. But you will be able to see the questions that I might ask you in the consult. So be prepared for that. And then once you've scheduled your consult, as a film and video applicant, you will be able to submit this shortened letter of inquiry form online, and you'll be able to do the same thing for community project grants. Before you start writing anything or filling out the LOIs, you have to go to our online grant management portal to do any of this. So make sure that you've checked it out. There's links to it on each web page and at the top of our website. And there's some instructions in that gray box on your screen. If you're a new user, your organization's never applied for funding before, go ahead, jump in, create your organization and your user account. If your organization has applied before, find out if you have login credentials or contact me and I can add you as a new contact. Or if you're not sure, reach out and I can do some work on the back end to see if your organization has an account and if you're listed in our system. The third step to apply is to complete the application. So once you've met with me, once you've completed that LOI form, I will open the online application for you to start working in. You can save content and draft. I can review your drafts if you'd like me to. I do that up until about 3 weeks prior to the deadline, so probably that second week of July. It doesn't have to be complete. It has no bearing on your final submission evaluation. This is just an opportunity for me to get in there and review your budget or to review your supplemental documentation, anything that you'd like me to look at before you formally submit. And you'll also be able to preview application questions from our website. They are the PDF version of the question list downloaded from our application portal. Applications for community project grants and film and video grants are due by 11:59 on August 1st, 2024. Few final notes here. Tips for successful applications. So make sure that your application organization information is correct. The name of your organization must match the organization receiving funding and the name of the organization tied to all of your tax ID and forms and your CEO certification letter. So make sure it's all one. Also, be accurate, be complete, keep your thoughts well organized, your descriptions and your narratives clear and concise. Ensure that you're providing adequate detail about your project's purpose and how it's strongly rooted in the humanities, and focus your proposal on what you're asking us to support. If you go too big, it's going to be really hard for us to pare down and figure out what part of your project you need us to support, especially if you're coming to us for a part of your project and not the whole thing. So make sure that you're really focusing on what you need us to support. Think about your audience. Review our list of board members on the website so that you can see who will be reading your proposals, and write to them. Also write to, I might not be a filmmaker. I'm not a filmmaker, so I don't necessarily understand all of the nuances of filmmaking. So make sure that you're providing adequate explanation for things that people not experts in certain fields would need to know. There's some things you should not do. If your application is difficult to understand, if it doesn't provide enough detail, these are things that automatically are difficult for evaluators to score highly. All right. The last few slides, I'll just talk through them briefly. The budget and budget narrative tips. So plan the budget as you plan your program. Ask questions like how much does this cost? Who's going to do that? What would this look like if it was donated versus something that we had to pay for? And make sure that you write a little brief sentence or two by each of those items so that when you go to build your budget in your budget narrative, you have something to reference. It is so much harder to create the budget at the end of your proposal, even though that's where it's located in the application. Do as much as you can to get your budget outlined at the beginning of the project. Additionally, be sure your budget is consistent with the work plan section. Don't include expenses that you don't list in your work plan activity as like key activities for your project. Because we look at both of those things side by side and we look for, oh, well, this is going to pay this amount will support this key activity. So that's what we're looking for as we review the grants. Don't inflate your budget. And also don't create a budget that's unreasonably low because you think it's going to be more appealing for us. That's not the case. Ask for what you need. Maybe not all that you want, but ask for what you need. Our budget templates are available for community project grants. You can see the budget table in the PDF application questions on the website. And for film and video, the budget template form will be available on the website here in the next few weeks. So please take a look at that. And your budget narrative section is just a more detailed description of each line item. And it might look something like this that's on your screen right now. So you put in your project budget that you need $8,000 for project staff salaries. And then you have to describe how you came up with that total. How did you calculate this request amount? And make sure that you review our funding guidelines for travel, or you can reach out to me and we can work through what those what might be eligible or what amounts are appropriate for each grant category. So final steps, make sure you review and revise. You can draft your responses. I recommend doing it in a Word document and then copying and pasting your final content into the application itself, but know you can save it there. We can add collaborators so more people from your organization can review the grant or contribute different sections. Make sure that you proofread, use our editing tools in the online application. And then before you hit submit, check it twice, check it thrice, make sure that you've got all of your numbers correct, your budget adds up across and down, and you've got all of your supplemental information attached. Just double check that checklist and make sure you've got it all. And then submit. And once you hit submit, go do something else. Let it go, because it's going to be a while before we let you know whether or not your project is awarded funding. So after an application is submitted, our applications are reviewed by staff to check for eligibility and compliance. Community project and film and video grant applications are then reviewed by our grants for our board of directors, and our grants committee meets about a month prior to the board meeting to discuss scores and comments and submit funding recommendations to the full board. The board of directors will meet in the end of September and review the August applications, the August 1st submissions. Once the board meeting concludes, they make their final decisions. We complete a risk assessment, and then Humanities Montana staff, I will call you or email you and let you know of our award decision by no later than October 15th. If your request is approved, we'll ask you to schedule some time to schedule a post-award consult. We'll get you through the award management guidelines and your post-award responsibilities, and we'll talk through any nuances and make sure that your project is going to be successful. If your request is denied, it's my least favorite part of my job, but if it is denied, the best thing to do is to wait a minute, don't call me immediately. Let things cool off and then schedule a time to discuss your application. I will be able to provide comments and scores and insights into why your project wasn't funded and maybe something else was. And oftentimes maybe there was just a little thing that the board wanted to see or a question that was unanswered. And it would be an easy fix to fix it and then resubmit during the next cycle. So don't miss that opportunity to receive feedback. Okay. And my parting thoughts for you, we are here to help guide you through the application process. Grant making, it does have there's a lot of parts to it. But if you have a project idea, it's steeped in humanities content, and you are reaching an audience that typically doesn't have access to the humanities, I want to help you through the application process as much as I can. I don't want the grant making process to be intimidating or exclusive. We are redistributing public funds, so we want to make sure that everyone in the state has access to our funds and can experience humanities programming. Your success is our success. If things change, if your scope of work shifts or your timeline shift or you need budget modifications, we want you to contact us so that we can help you be successful. And don't hesitate to contact with questions. My schedule gets busy. I might be slower to respond at times than others, but please reach out and I will get back to you. My contact information if you have questions, concerns. Again, go to humanitiesmontana.org, look for our grants menu, select the grant you're interested in applying for, and dive into that webpage as soon as possible. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your interest in our grant making, and I look forward to hearing more about your project ideas soon.